All right, good afternoon, everyone. Will staff please confirm quorum?
Yes. President Huddleston.
Here.
Vice President Dorman. Vice President Blake.
Present.
Director Altamont.
Present.
Director Prince.
Here.
Director Arce.
Here. Here.
Director Burks.
Here.
Quorum is present.
The March 5th meeting of Strategic Housing Finance Corporation Board of Directors is hereby called to order at 1:36. We will now move to citizen communication.
We do not have any.
Seeing no registered speakers, we will close citizen communication and move to administrative items.
Sorry, I have been snoozing. The slides. We do not have any administrative items today, President House.
The chair recognizes the executive director for the director's report.
Excellent. Talk amongst yourselves. No, thank you. In terms, we are reporting on financial activity for the month of January of 2026, first month of the year. At the end of January, we had just over 18 months of operating cash on hand, not including our board designated funds set aside for the Housing Production Fund and the Portfolio Fund, which are an additional many months of operating, and I think in your report it is called out, here it is not. Quite liquid at present. We did have some modest revenue in January, mostly interest income, a little bit of construction admin fee. If you remember the sort of graph we looked at last month about the pattern of our income, this is consistent with what we have seen over the last couple of years. So we are not particularly alarmed about that. And our expenditures also in January were somewhat below what has been our average. So year-to-date net assets sit at just over 26 million, the vast majority of which is cash. In terms of quick reminders and calendar items, we will have property tours on the 17th. As always, you are invited. After the regular board meeting on April 2nd, we will also be convening on the 30th of April to brief the Commissioners Court. That is a Thursday afternoon. You are, of course, also invited to join staff at the Housing Works Summit on April 17th, which we are sponsoring. We have started including committee meeting dates in the board bulletin that comes out every week or two. So check that for your schedule. Of course, you will also get a calendar invite. I do want to note that we will begin moving to Civic Plus for committee work as well as the general board meetings, but that will happen gradually. So expect to see that through the staff that is coordinating your committee and with your chairs. And then, of course, I know that most committees have begun the process of reviewing potential charters for their committees. I don't know if President Huddleston wants to say anything about that in terms of our thoughts about when it might come back to the board. Or
I'm thinking we need to get the meeting schedule and touch base with all of the chairs, and then once we finish all of the
those rounds of meetings, yes,
then we'll bring it back and we will discuss all of them as a discussion item.
Excellent. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Comments? Awesome. Thank you, Director Gray. We will now move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the approval of the February 12th, 2026 regular meeting minutes. Is there any item a director would like removed from the consent agenda? Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda? No. Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We'll now move to item VA, the annual portfolio report. This is a discussion item. I recognize David Betnoff for the presentations.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Excited to give you a report on how 2025 went for our portfolio. I do want to acknowledge the hard work of the real estate team. It took everyone's efforts to put together. And then also I appreciate the feedback we received on the draft report from Real Estate Committee. And so this presentation, just to give you a brief overview of what we'll talk about today. It'll give highlights of what's in the report. It is not going to be a presentation about every detail in the report. Not every section will be covered either. There will be some concluding thoughts, lessons learned from the portfolio, or just takeaways we can have on that points of emphasis. And then as well as as this is a discussion item on the agenda, opportunity to debrief on what I understand is the first comprehensive portfolio report that this organization has had. Okay, there it is. Okay, so the purpose of the report is to provide you all with what the state of the portfolio was for 2025, to identify portfolio-wide issues that may be present, for a performance of the portfolio and how it exists within the greater market context. And then for a brief outlook for the coming year, I do want to mention that the primary focus of the report is to be retrospective, but there are a couple things within the report that point out what you might expect for 2026 and onwards. So in 2025, the Austin multifamily market performance was, so deliveries outpaced net absorption. And what that means is that there were more multifamily units brought online than people who needed apartments. And so we'll get into it, but that causes downward pressure on occupancy. Construction starts were down. So what that means is that because of today's current market conditions, people are making decisions not to build moving forward, or to build less than we have in the past, which will may lead to issues a few years from now, as we're not receiving the same level of deliveries. Submarket concentration in the east and northeast. So just like our portfolio, which you'll see on a map in a moment, a lot of people were building in the east and northeast parts of Travis County. And then a key point I want to highlight is that market rate and 60% AMI rents converged. So what that means is that 60% rents were no longer competitive. That's this is of course averages. There are are many factors that go into it, and of course this is good news for our tenants or renters in Travis County, but it's going to be temporary. And so they converge, and so that meant that affordable properties were competing with market rate properties, and that's unique to the Austin market. And so you don't have to really read what this chart here is. I'll tell you what it is. You got the red circle at the bottom right. That's Austin. And what that's saying is that 75% of affordable properties, or 75% of market rate properties are competitive with affordable housing. And then everyone else is to the left. So we are an outlier in Austin. And then here we just have a chart showing what I mentioned previously, that deliveries and net absorption, their relationship that they had. So deliveries outpacing in 2025, net absorption, that was not so the case, going back from 2022 prior. And it does appear that maybe these lines will intersect moving forward, which is an indication of stabilization in the market. And then briefly, an outlook for 2026. It's basically going to look very similar to 2025. It is a transitional year where 2027, late 2026, that may be where we start to see a gradual and prolonged recovery. And then here is a chart showing projections of where rental rates and occupancy are expected to go. This chart is sourced from Yardi Matrix. And so you see occupancy will tick up. Rents are going to have a much more slower increase than occupancy. And so what is our portfolio today, or in 2025? 24 communities comprising of 4,410 units. The median age of the properties are 7 years, which is relatively young portfolio. However, we do have some aging properties in the portfolio that we will be keeping an eye on for things like deferred maintenance or other issues that may arise as a property gets older. 92% of our units are at 60% AMI rental restrictions. This is an improvement of prior years where it was nearly the entire portfolio was at 60%, but it shows that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in diversifying the affordability rent, restricted rents in our portfolio. And then we have 9 development partners, which is great. We don't have an over-reliance on any single development partner. And then the final point, which I've highlighted, is that our portfolio at the end of 25 averaged 83% occupancy. And that is the primary problem that we'll highlight for you today in the portfolio in 2025. And it was 83% basically throughout 2025. So there was not a decline, there was not an increase, it was basically just 83% the entire year. Okay, and so it may be silly to show a chart like this where you have one bar towering above the rest, but this is just so you can see a visual of just how overweight our portfolio is in 60% AMI, and this includes properties under construction as well. That's why that number is 5,000. I just told you we have 4,400 operating, over 5,000 once we have projects completing construction. But anyways, yeah, so this is just showing we need to diversify our portfolio. That is particularly important when we have competition in the market with market rates dropping to 60%. And then just quickly, this is showing our bedroom mix in our portfolio. So you can see it's a healthy mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. We do have some 4 bedrooms. We don't have that many studios. So it's we're serving diverse household sizes, families, and that's a good thing. And then here is a map of where our portfolio properties are located. You can see that there is concentration in Northeast Travis County, and that we are finding that projects in west of 35, west of Mopac remain elusive. And so moving on to kind of how we assess how our portfolio is doing. So we have new for 2025, the risk rating and oversight plan. And so in this one, we have categories that are rated from low or 1 to high risk or 5. And so physical condition, this is found through site visits that we conduct. Financial performance, this is based on the operating expenses, age receivables, and other metrics. Occupancy, we're looking at leasing trends, how is turnover, in addition to just the occupancy rate. Tenant experience, this includes tenant retention as sort of a marker to how tenants are feeling about the property. If you have high turnover, there's probably something wrong with the tenant experience on the property. And then partnership and compliance. So this is how well our development or our property management partners are operating, as well as how, if there are any reporting issues with that partner. And so 2.3, that is the average portfolio risk score. So what that means it's moderate but manageable risk with an asterisk that I will get into later. And so for our risk rating and oversight plan, in addition to tracking that, collecting that data and doing the rating, it is a quarterly oversight cycle in which we start with assessment and prioritization, validation and site visits to come after that. We do intervention planning when needed, so we'll be working with property managers to offer suggestions on improving situations at properties, then monitoring and adjusting as needed, and then repeating each quarter. And then here, as I mentioned, occupancy, primary issue in the portfolio in 2025. So here we have properties that had occupancy below 80%. You can see those on the screen. And I will call out that data from properties affiliated with Rise Residential was unavailable for Colorado Creek and Creekview. So they may have occupancy below 80%. We don't know because we don't get the data from our partner. Financial performance. This is basically just showing the diverse sources of revenue we receive from our portfolio. And so this is helpful when we have situations in which one revenue source diminishes compared to historical norms. We have a lot of revenue in 2025 and 2024 that came from construction stage related fees payments. And so that would be things like developer fee payments that when you're in construction, there are certain milestones that are hit as the project's completed, and that results in a payout to the developer and strategic. And there's also construction admin fees that we charge as a part of the sales tax exemption we bring to construction materials. And so when we receive those, that allows us to weather the storm, so to speak, when cash flow related revenue sources are diminished because of occupancy issues and things like that. We also, of course, had some substantial repositioning revenue. And what that means is there was a sale or refi of either interest in a partnership or the property itself. And so in 2024, that was Forest Park. And then in 2025, that was Silver Springs. That type of revenue is not to be expected. It will occur as properties get older, but that is not a source of revenue that we rely upon to pay our expenses. And then our construction pipeline, it consists of 5 projects making up nearly 1,400 units and nearly $250 million in development activity. And these are the 5 projects that are under construction right now, average at 90% completion. 2 are actively in lease up as they finalize construction. And we anticipate all of these will deliver in 2026.
Does this not include?
This does not include Rise Residential. So I have a note here that within the report, it notes that Rise Residential projects, Austin Manor and Lakeway Apartments, have been excluded from our construction pipeline due to the unique circumstances surrounding those projects and the developer, and that we have been taking extensive risk mitigation efforts that continuing that from 2024 and into 2026. So some concluding points. The market was weak throughout 2025, and this will continue into 2026. But we seem to be at or near the bottom and things to improve from here on out. The portfolio's concentration of 60% AMI units in an oversaturated market exposed a significant vulnerability in our portfolio last year. And occupancy remained flat throughout the year. As I mentioned, it was 83% about the entire year. And so the portfolio had moderate but manageable risk, as we saw from our risk rating process, except for properties associated with Rise. And it seems that we spent a lot of time as an organization in 2025 making sure we had the right tools in place to monitor our portfolio and to improve it in various ways. That was through staff capacity. You know, we fully staffed up last year. We have an engaged board of directors and active committees. We have new oversight mechanisms such as the risk rating system, we have multiple revenue sources that we can rely upon that, you know, if something is not working out so well here, we may have some other opportunities. Strategic aim will help us to cultivate a more diverse pipeline. So that's our affordability impact metric that we developed last year to sort of have assess new prospects that come into our world. And then we also, the board designated the portfolio fund last year. We also have housing production fund, which helps with new projects that we'll be adding to our portfolio. I do want to take a time to talk about occupancy a bit and how or how not we can improve that situation. So occupancy is primarily a macroeconomic issue. However, there are steps that property managers can take to increase occupancy to be in line with the market. For example, we ended 2025 with some properties at 72% occupied and others at 93%, showing that there are steps, you know, that could be taken by property managers to improve occupancy. As you all know, we are not property managers and we don't have direct asset management over nearly all of our portfolio, with the exception being Cambridge Villas, which ended the year at 90% occupancy. The risk rating system and quarterly intervention cycle, along with other tools, will help us identify which specific problems a property may have that could contribute to lower than some market occupancy. And so we don't have a silver bullet that will bring everything up to, you know, 93% occupancy. But I think at the margins, as we work with our property managers with our intervention plan, we can help them identify issues, act as a second set of eyes to improve the situation at the property and improve occupancy. And real estate committee will be looking at ways in which we can incentivize property managers to increase occupancy efforts in 2026. Part of this is that I hope none of the information in this report was a surprise to you. I think we keep the board informed of how our portfolio is doing throughout the year in a variety of ways, whether that's the monthly financial performance reports and the director's report. We have a quarterly portfolio overview that's part of the director's report. We have the housing market data report, new for last year, that we presented. We also have real estate committee that's kept informed of things that are happening at a greater level or a higher level of detail. We also have our legal matters committee to deal with when we do have problems that rise to that point. And then we have the budgeting process as well, which of course, you know, expectations for how the market will do the following year informs how we should project our revenue. And so, potential discussion topics. Was this report helpful? Is there any new information that was surprising to you? And does this help you with your board policymaking? Also, if there's any feedback on the report before we finalize it and turn the page. That concludes my presentation.
The floor is now open for board discussion. Does anyone have any comments or feedback?
All right. Thanks. So yes, this report's really helpful. So thank you for putting it together. I'm curious on the risk rating kind of matrix, you know, where you landed at that moderate risk profile. You know, do you have sort of, based on the risk profile, like levels of influence/intervention that you've identified? Like if it's in this category, we're going to up our, you know, involvement in these ways. Is
Yes.
that kind of the, okay.
Yeah, so we have the 5 key metrics. And within your report, I did not put it here on the presentation, but within your report, there is a dashboard that kind of shows how each of our properties were assessed on those 5 characteristics. And then that helps our portfolio manager, Shelley Lenz, understand what exactly the issues that need to be tackled when working with that property manager.
And if they're, yeah, in a couple of categories, I think it's not just the overall score, but if there are, you know, 5s, et cetera, then that calls for Shelley to engage with them, and we do that on a quarterly basis.
Yeah. And so you'll see in that dashboard, even if a property has you know, an average score of, let's say, 2.3, but there's a 5 in that category, like Diana said, we don't just rely on the average. We do focus on each of those points.
And then my next question is, of the 5 that you identified with sort of sub 80% occupancy, were there trends or similarities like geographic location, operator, property manager, or anything that you guys?
4 of the 5 are of our older properties.
Property age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, the main one. 2 of them are that are coming to mind as you look at the list, David, are the same owner operator and did go through an ownership transfer in the last year or so. Anything else?
Yeah, so one is in an area that has had substantial building in the last couple of years. So there is intense competition as one of our older properties too. So people got the new and shiny, and we've got our property there. And then one of them is in a location that lacks visibility, and so that may be contributing to its occupancy issues. I believe that's also a senior property, and so it's got a limited population. So it's different for each property for the most part. There's not a single trend across all of them on why they're experiencing lower occupancy.
Thanks. Last question. It's okay. In terms of, the expectation, I know this report's a look back, but, setting the expectations for this year to be pretty similar. You do have some construction pipeline. And this is maybe still a newbie question to the board, but are you all, considering preservation type deals or still with your impact metrics focused on, that new construction?
There may be one preservation deal that we're in the early stages of looking at right now. We don't really people don't come to us with them.
Okay.
Developers do not come to us typically with preservation opportunities. There was one we looked at last year. It was kind of too much, I think, for the organization to be able to take on. So most of it is everything that we're looking at for the most part is new construction. That just happens to be what developers bring to it.
Okay, yeah, and I'll definitely understand more, but just in a soft market, it does also present opportunity, right? So just something to think about.
Yeah.
I think it's something we've been, kind of on the lookout for. And honestly, I mean, we say preservation, we think much older properties, right? But we have newer properties that have hit the market and their assumptions about the market are not going to hold. So those may also be opportunities. I think more traditional preservation, the sort of seriousness of our occupancy and softness of our rent issues right now, what we are sort of hearing is like getting equity into deals is a challenge broadly, and taking a property like that right now would be a very significant challenge.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, B.
So, the properties where occupancy stuff and with the property managers and occupancy or
Director Arce, you're fading in and out a little bit. Could you repeat that, please, and see if we can understand you?
Okay, I'm sorry. Do the property managers have a game plan in place to entice customers, or not customers, my apologies, but to increase occupancy?
Yeah, they all have plans in place. The question is how realistic in their specific context are they going to be able to make change, and also how effective. Property management often relies on who's the individual or individuals working at that property, and so part of our risk rating process is to go out and see what exactly is the plan. We notice we got these issues, but there's only so much we as strategic can do we cannot direct action. We just don't have that ability to direct action. And so all of what we do is just acting as a accountability partner in a way, but at the same time, we just cannot. We don't have the ability to fire individuals. We don't have the ability to tell people on site what to do, and so there's just a few different factors in which we have limited influence.
Okay.
Dr. Gordon.
And if you want to go first, that's fine.
Go for it. I have.
First, you asked a broad question, is this helpful? This is so helpful. I just really want to make it clear, coming through the years to this point, how eager we've been for data and information and access to staff analysis, staff response to suboptimal performance, strategies, coming to us with, do we need to set up some kind of policy? Also, I just want to give major kudos for the transparency on this, because doing a quick Google search online among our peers, you can't find this stuff among any of our peers. So again, in pursuit of being the best HFC in Texas, I just really want to say this is a good beginning. And not only do I appreciate it, I'm really thrilled with it, and I hope to see more of it. So to answer that question. And then it's interesting that everything so far, and I'll just keep my comments right now and further ones later, has been about occupancy. So just to piggyback on what we've already heard, I know that your conclusion was that occupancy was a macro issue. And I just want to tell you, I'm not sure I've got the data to see it that way. Maybe you can help me. But knowing that we fluctuate from 70% to 100%, we had a property at 100%. I know you quoted 93, but it's my understanding that from
It may
the
be
report,
100% today. This
no,
the
it's
data ends
December
at
25.
Okay.
I saw it in the report. Maybe I'm recalling incorrectly, but I read it in the report.
Oh, yeah.
So it does seem to me to kind of follow up on what Director Groves was saying. There's signs and symptoms that some things work and some things don't work, even on the localized level.
Right.
And so, as somebody who loves turnarounds and solutions, and has worked a lot in the housing area to try to make things better, I do feel like the deep dive into what's motoring the 100%. And to be honest, I'd be interested in bringing in the property manager that made 100% and give him a little award here, just like a day of recognition from strategic. Just let's reward the good stuff along with the suboptimal performance. But back to the 83% across the board average. Does that mean, since it was consistent across all times that we assessed in the year 2025, that it was completely resistant to any interventions we did?
I don't know. There maybe you have fluctuations with one property going up, another property going down.
Because that's what I'm looking for. I mean,
yeah.
You hear what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out what works.
Yeah.
And where is it possible to partner or fallen behind a successful approach and disseminate it to our other partners, if that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the properties that had the highest occupancy, from my recollection, were the brand new ones that were offering generous concessions.
100%.
Yeah. Also, there is one developer operator in our portfolio that seems to have higher occupancy amongst their properties than everyone else, and that's Elmington.
Yes.
And so I think identifying partners like Elmington moving forward, people who can, who bring something extra, I think, too, when they manage their properties and have higher than typical occupancy, is that doesn't help with our existing portfolio. But there are, our partners matter a lot, and how, why there might be differences in occupancy in the same submarkets.
Do you have anything you can share with us today in the way of success from partnering with an 83% or hovering around 83% property, and then an intervention that worked. Do you have anything that you?
I don't, no, I don't.
So I think I would say, and I will say that even amongst our developers or property managers that are broadly high performing,
Mhm.
they often will have several high performing properties and then one or more that are not, right? There's variation. So I do think submarket and likely individual managers make a difference.
Yeah.
My sense for there are a couple of different trends I see on the newer properties, having leasing property managers who are just very goal driven, right?
Yes.
Very assertive, following up with everyone. Really, I mean, there's a lot of shoe leather there, and so yes, we
Yes.
want that for everyone. The other thing I'll say is that there's another sort of subset of our properties that might actually be older. We have where there's older properties, they're competing with new stuff, they might suffer. We also see some properties, I think Paddock is maybe one of them, that I could be misspeaking, but it's nearby, that's a bit older, but also it has a very stable tenant population that has over time developed. So not only do you not have huge amounts of turnover year over year, but it's based on a population, many of whom have been there for 10 years, right? And I think that if a property is healthy, you can see, a stability in occupancy later down the line, just because you have so many people who are planning on staying there long term.
Yeah, I think the theme here is, do we have opportunity? Is it flatlining at 83 and we see the same thing and project it to 26, or is there opportunity? And that's what I would be, really interested. I'm sure the board would be interested in knowing more about. I have things other than occupancy, but I'll pause for now. Yeah. Surrender the technical floor.
Not really a question. This has been very helpful. Piggyback on a lot of things she said, the transparency, the tools and the graphs, and being able to, understand actually what's really going on, coming from when I first got on the board and seeing some of the same stuff and going, it's just a bunch of crowd. I don't understand this. You can't sell me that, but it's believable, and I think it's great. Thank you, Dr. Prince.
Any further questions?
Just to answer your questions, Mr. Dinoff, I do think this is very helpful, and I'm glad that we're producing this. As a council and court watcher, I think it'd be really useful if AHFC and TCHFC and the PFCs could be nudged to produce something like this. And let me tell you why. I'm very curious about what the city's 60 AMI portfolio's occupancy is.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for me to benchmark us without knowing that. Same for TCHFC, because for all we know, they're also stuck with us at 80%, and AHFC has a lot of tools. And so if they're 60, not they're 90, because as you know, they got a ton of 90, but not 90, 9%. If they're 9% is at 80%, I'd be surprised, right? But they're 4%, 60 AMI might have the same issues. They might be less concentrated. In any event, I wish either to our roundtable, or maybe if board members just have to be annoying, particularly those that are departing, to be like, hey, if we, Scrappy Strategic, can do this, then you, $100 million AHFC, can do this. And ultimately, you putting out this information is going to be just as helpful, if not more helpful, to the ecology than us. I think this is really helpful and a big win. We did talk about it at our last meeting with the court, and I hope we'll bring it up again as a nudge to them that it is possible to do this. It's hard for me to fully know how we're doing if TCHFC is not giving us similar data. And I'm willing to say that, the record and to their faces. Number two, was there any new information that was surprising to you? No, obviously, because I'm a rec and we developed this together. And number three, does this report help with board policy making? Yes, and I'm going to go through the levers that I think of whenever we get a report. Mr. Dino said something that's very important. Some of the tools that we've developed have a rec and are kind of prescriptive. Like, for example, the total production and forecasting tool. It's like, this is what we think we can do. Whereas this is what has happened, and it's descriptive. And that does not mean that we, as the board, cannot consume it to be like, well, what should we look at? And I always think of the big three levers, our budget and our special funds. And is there anything in the report that says we need to do things differently? Our overall policy making, particularly our deal terms, which are a big sort of, powerful lever. And then our communication as a board of priorities to the ED, particularly things that will be evaluated by, because I think that gets there. That everybody should be care about. What we're telling the ED officially matters, as opposed to, say, tangentially matters. And in reverse order, occupancy is already on there. We might want to adjust it, make it a special, strategic 2026 super priority. There's a bunch of stuff there, and that is to be determined by us. I don't think we have a risk-based plank there, although we have a sort of asset category, and we might want to retool that, which leads us a segue to the policy part. As I reviewed this the first time, and now as we've been talking about it, I do wonder if it's time to slightly refresh our KPIs, because we have a list of official KPIs that we adopted in the pre-gray era that have informed the evaluation. We might want to revisit those a little bit and fine-tune them now that we have things like AIM and the risk rating. In terms of policy, that's the sort of second lever. The kind of really big one is the deal terms, and we already gave them a scrub last year. One thing I mentioned in rec is, as you know, in tax credit deals, you can maybe encourage more of a mixed income feel. And I think we have had in this community a sense that is bad, because we want to go as deep as possible all the time. And so all 60 is better than some 80 and some random 30. I do wonder if that's still the best idea. I don't feel strongly about it, but it seemed like one we might be revisiting. On the budget and our funds, to me, it seems like our resources are allocated as they should be. One thing that was not in the presentation, but is in the report, and that I remember, because it's been something I'm always very anxious about, given our experiences here, is what's the next properties that's hitting the 15-year, and so we've got.
Say it. I want you to say it. Mophead?
It's a wood. What is it?
Paddock at Norwood?
Paddock at Norwood. Thank you. Paddock at Norwood. I always say it as Mopwood. I don't know why. Paddock at Norwood.
No.
Paddock at Norwood is 11 years old. So we still got some time. And what it means is, for our portfolio fund, which is $4 million in it, we should be okay. We should be okay in terms of being able to think strategically there. So the takeaway on the three big levers is we are okay. The information we're getting and the choices we've been making with the big levers are a-okay. There's a few places we might want to tweak.
Yeah, about the repositioning, and I think it is mentioned in the report that you do foresee some, and I just wondered, proactively, are you in the process of contacting developers in the aging properties, and what is the mechanism you've got in place to kind of, I think there's even a mention in the report that you don't want to be reactive, you want to be proactive. So how will that look?
I would have to ask the team.
I can step in.
Acting.
Yes. I
Sort of substitute teacher for the teacher. I don't know.
Surprise. We can look specifically, but what I know is that the team came up with, kind of a schedule of this far ahead, we will reach out to them. I don't know where precisely we are, with each of these deals, but we have laid out sort of a rhythm of when that contact would initiate. I wouldn't be surprised if with this first grouping, because of course, as you know, even in the last 2 years, we got a couple of, maybe not wholly surprises, but we did not have a system that said, this is coming, set aside the funds, be ready, particularly for the buyout of the investor limited partner. So we do have criteria and a schedule that staff has developed. I'm happy to share that with you all.
Okay, so that's coming.
It can come, yes.
It's in process and
It exists
It exists.
already, yes. I just don't have memorized the specific
fine.
timing.
No, I'd be very interested in hearing about that. Okay. No rush.
Great.
It's not an order for tomorrow, just to be clear. Then I just had a question on the beyond the occupancy stabilization, coming out of our history, and as one of the longer sitting directors, along with my colleague, Director Prince and Director Altamirano, we are sadly too familiar with what happens with code violations. And I know they're mentioned in the larger report, but you didn't really hit on it in your discussion today. And for the benefit of the newer members who thankfully were spared that trauma, is there something that we could get in the way of a summary today, specifically for the benefit of the newer members, about what is, how many properties do have code violations, if any? How old are those violations? And what is our status on the repeat offender program?
Yeah, I would, I personally don't have that information readily available, but we do have that, Shelley Lyons would be able to provide that.
Yeah, it's one of the things that comes into the scoring, so they are
Right.
doing a
I saw
quarterly
that.
review of any code violations, so it's part of the broader risk analysis, but we can pull that out to take a look at.
Do you have a sense of how many properties? Is there a property on the risk of repeat offender program?
There's only one.
At this moment, is it still on the risk offender program?
I checked within the last month. It was there. I haven't checked more recently. But
So
there's one.
staff, not necessarily.
I
Not
don't
sure.
know today.
I don't have
Yeah, we'll look.
Yeah, to that level of
Okay.
detail.
Again, for the benefit of those who don't know what we're talking about, the repeat offender program is something that the Code Violation Department of Travis County looks at. Violations that have been cited, repairs that haven't been completed or not adequately completed. There's a series of inspections, and I think after 2 years, you're put on a repeat offender program. In our own history, we were on the repeat offender program so long at Rosemont that we were barred from leasing up new apartments. Like there is like a hammer that they can use at the end of the repeat offender program where you can't lease up. And so you're talking occupancy, our occupancy at Rosemont really looked grim. I don't think we're there. I have been monitoring the repeat offender program, but I understood from what I was monitoring that it was really a $1,600 fee needed at Silver Springs and one more inspection. And that's old information from 40 days ago. So I was hoping it was off. But I'm just wondering what we do. And I know we don't have a policy on this. How does staff approach that?
So I don't have that level of detail specific to, any issue with the portfolio. Just we rely on other members of our team have that information. So I cannot answer your question, I think, in a solid way, honestly. But that is part of our process. We do look at code violations. Kind of on this topic, I do want to say, related to code violations, this is not really featured in the report because this has not really come to a head in 2025. It is something that is coming to a head now. And so, maybe as a preview to what might be in the 2026 report, we are concerned about what is happening at Colorado Creek and Creekview. Those are our RISE operating properties. I will be this is a public, so I'll be a little bit delicate with what I say about this, but that we have concerns, and it's because of the process that we're going through on a quarterly basis, as well as some problems that are coming to our attention because of code violations from externally.
So both those properties have code violations, is what you're saying?
They have the same manager. One of them has code violations,
Okay,
but they have
because that's public
similar
information.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to more broadly sort of back up a little bit and say we've been talking a lot about occupancy. And occupancy is great because it's it's sort of the canary in the coal mine of it leads to clearly the most obvious thing is financial difficulty for the property. But in terms of our mission, the thing that's so important and concerning is that when occupancy drops far enough, the property begins to struggle with maintenance, et cetera. And you get to a point where even if the rent is really affordable, the living conditions are not adequate. It's not a great place to live, and it's hard to attract new tenants, right? So I think that's now into this, we're into the second year of declining occupancy, or it declined in 24 for us and stabilized at an unusually low rate in 25, is kind of watching for that financial distress at the property level, and figuring out how we can both monitor and work with our partners to ensure that that quality housing can continue to be delivered.
I appreciate that, because there is the, by definition, a code violation means it's less than inhabitable, according to the definition of habitability. So it is an impact on tenants. Yeah. Appreciate your comments very much. Let me see if I have anything else here. I think that's everything. I had a question about the most aged receivables, but I think it's in the big report, right? I can look
I
at it
believe
myself.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't include very much other than the risk rating dashboard. We did not include
I'm looking at it.
property specific details.
Yeah.
We have that data. I thought, we thought the report for this purpose a little higher level. So we did not include all the data that we as staff have. Of course, if you would like to see, we have that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. That concludes my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Gross.
Just a quick clarification point on zoning violations. Would those show up under the physical condition category of the risk?
I believe
Yes.
so.
Okay.
It may also tie into the compliance metric as well.
I think it's in physical condition.
Yeah.
And maybe last comment on occupancy, in terms of, I think, what a lot of us had said, anecdotally, I think 83% is not off par with market in the area for all the economic conditions that you spoke of. But, is there some market data, maybe not direct to HFC, but, TAB or T-Shack or something that gives us, total market and then sort of that 60% AMI level occupancy, just to kind of benchmark ourselves against that
Yes.
broadly other players.
So yes, there is. We are subscribers to Yardi Matrix, which we can pull a lot of market data from that. We also receive market data from other firms, their mailing lists or things like that. And they can sometimes be specific to the Austin area. There is the ability to pull occupancy for affordable properties, and I will tell you that I believe when I saw it was 90% for affordable properties. Whereas, our portfolio average is at 83%. Now, affordable takes into an affordability mix from 30% all the way up to 80%.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and locations throughout, and, we're concentrated in a submarket at 60%. And so that's kind of, the confluence of a couple of issues. But we are, we do have the ability to get that data, and we are below the overall affordable housing occupancy.
But which is also below market rate. So I think, my recollection is that the Yardi data, you may know this better than I do, gives us affordable LIHTC properties, but doesn't call out, at the income tier. So, what we know is that it's the 60% units are the ones that are, which is, of course, most of our portfolio, what's really.
All right. I thought from the report, what surprised me was that Austin was affordable at 51% of area median income, and that includes market rate. And so when we're looking at competition for the 60% units, we're competing with the market at being at 51. So we really, if there's any way to incentivize the operators to lower that rent so we can fill the units, because at the end of the day, we want heads and beds into house as many people as possible. A question I'm wondering is, if we were to look at the market and break it into asking rents and break that into AMI levels served, if we could do the average asking rent for the properties and kind of determine what occupancy each AMI bucket falls into. Does that make sense? So if you had, say, $500 was at 30% AMI, could we pull all of the properties that have an asking rent of average 500 and say these ones in this bucket at 30% AMI affordable are filled at 80%, 90%, 100%, so we can kind of get a demand for what AMI bands are.
And we would be getting that occupancy data at the property level.
I think that it's possible. I can work with, or I can look at it.
Yeah.
And see.
Because I think the challenge will be in a 9% deal. It's not just you might have the occupancy.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
But,
So, yeah, I was thinking that through. I think if you just pull the average rent, not necessarily it has to be capital A affordable, but if we look at overall competition for each AMI band, like what percentage of occupancy is that? I think we can look at it and kind of figure out how to parse that. Julio, maybe you can.
I'd rather call them here and be like, why do you guys not have this report?
Yeah.
Can you give us one of these? And then we can just have this discussion. Because also, Yardi, come on. How...
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, if you say so, Yardi.
Yeah, I think it should be possible.
Yes.
I'm glad you have it. I'm just saying. Like,
no, the other piece I think is anecdotally, like, because. As we bat around ideas of what we might be able to do, and we talk to property managers and our, developers who self-manage, we say, well, okay, so are your 50% units filled? And they're like, oh yeah, all day long.
Yeah.
So so the rent is affordable at 50%, maybe. But, remember, if you're most market rate, property managers take the best qualified applicant. So the likelihood of someone making at 50% and below, maybe getting that unit is lower. So I don't know. I think I also take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, and is that for at all unit sizes? Is, kind of what's the, how are we measuring that? I think that clearly 60% is at or above market. 51%.
51% is what?
Surprises me. Yeah.
Yeah, surprised me too. To that end, there is a tool called Apartment IQ that can scrape all of the asking rents on property websites that's publicly available if we did want to see what our counterparts are doing. Just a thought.
Great.
We wanted it sooner rather than
Could you repeat
later.
that again? Because sorry,
They're good.
I spent a lot of time trying to find TCFs.
Yeah, there's a tool called Apartment IQ that can scrape all of the publicly available data from properties' websites, and it can give you occupancy based on like how many units they have available to lease, and then it can also give you what the asking rents are. So something that we could use for benchmarking. on our counterparts, the other HFCs. Do you know if I'm guessing on the new builds we're offering concessions, or our partners are offering concessions.
Yes.
Do we know what the average concession length is? And if not, no problem.
6 weeks, I believe.
6 weeks, okay. Based on your findings, did you uncover a submarket that's more posed for occupancy and rent growth based on current occupancy and deliveries?
Yes, go further west.
Right, go for the rest.
Whether it's
There's
north or south, go further west.
neighbor.
There's a need for housing there that people would like this.
But I don't think we haven't parsed that data really closely yet. It's
When we're looking at deals, are we looking at like a 3-mile radius or any kind of radius at all from where the deal's sited at, and what current asking rents are falling in like the AMI band to determine if we're going to be able to be competitive in that submarket?
Our developers bring market studies in the process. We look at those, review those, and make sure the pro forma is lining up with what's in that market study. I wouldn't say we do like a 3-mile buffer or anything like that. We also, I'll be honest, we rely on that these deals are getting funded by equity and debt if they make it to the finish line, and so they're doing a lot. They would also be interested in making sure that this is going to be competitive. I think this is a unique situation, unique to Austin. This time period that we're in right now. I remember in 2022, everyone thought rents would be up 25% from in 2026, and that didn't happen in the opposite way. So, but yes, we do review, make sure that we do look at comps. Most certainly, yeah.
and we've formalized that a bit over the last year or so. It used to be pretty.
Right. Interested to see if there's any correlation or trend on turnover with consumer sentiment. Particularly
like
Michigan.
Macro consumer sentiment and turnover.
Because that was the other thing I found very interesting, that it went from, I think, 6 to 2. I'm seeing that kind of all over the board in Texas. That retention is very high. Good thing for us. It helps us decrease a lot of our turn costs, concessions, all that, all the things that will boost NOI with the high retention. Would be interested in exploring and rec if retention is something that we can tie some kind of incentive to.
Yes.
With Elmington does have deals in the pipeline with us today.
Yeah, under construction. Also, we're still talking to them about some prospects. Yes.
Okay, great. And then another note: when projects are in lease up, to the point Diana made, the property manager, the leasing manager are very heavily compensated to lease those projects up. So that could be why we're seeing lease up, and obviously the concessions and whatnot, but the compensation difference between property and lease up versus, a property that's 10 years old. I'm thinking there's quite a big delta with compensation for leasing those units. So maybe something to think about. And then when I was looking and thinking about revenue and having sustainable revenue, what activities would we have to engage in on a reoccurring basis? Obviously, like getting deals done, but outside of that, to set us up for success to hit the revenue targets.
The revenue, the operating revenue, and by that I mean not our organizational operating revenue, but the revenue that is coming from the operation of the portfolio. I would say we have three. Well, we have interest, of course, right? You know, we have interest, we have the occasional repositioning. But, it might not be unusual. If we look 15 years down the road, we might be hitting a place where we tend to have a repositioning every year.
Yeah.
I do think those, that back end participation is less sweet than it used to be. Sorry.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we gotta clarify that for the.
Yes.
We might have benefited from a unique
Correct.
set of timings. It's not like we can always bank on, oh, it's year 15, here comes $10 million.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Oftentimes it says, it's year 15, your property needs a lot of money and nobody wants to buy it, right? And so,
Yes.
as a line item and sustainably to this question, we got to clarify that a little bit.
Yes. Briefly, the earlier tax credit deals, like the earliest ones in our portfolio, tended to have more generous allowances for the nonprofit partner, which we are in this case, to buy out the investor limited partner. That has narrowed over time, but to Director Altamirano's point, also, very often, and we are seeing this with a couple of our properties, they often need substantial capital reinvestment at that point, and they may, it's not uncommon for them to be resyndicated to do another tax credit kind of round. So we've had a couple that generated significant cash proceeds. I think we'll have some additional analysis to do, but that's not an assumption that we make. We benefit from closing deals. That's fairly substantial, at the closing table. We get, I would say historically strategic. If we are both bond issuer and a partner, might reap close to $1 million at closing. I think that's gone down a little bit for us, both because we've looked at our terms and want to be more competitive, and because some of our deals are workforce deals that don't have the bond issuance and so don't have that revenue stream. Then there's payments that are happening along during the development process, both payments for the construction management fee, which is essentially an acknowledgement of the value we're bringing for the sales tax exemption, as well as the developer fee that gets paid along the way. And so those that comes from, those are in our portfolio. We're in the partnership, right? But I think one thing that I hope we can do as we continue to refine this report is look at what's truly coming from operations, right? What's the revenue that's coming from? Is the property doing okay? Do they have enough at the end of the day to pay any deferred developer fee, to pay our annual fees, which is usually fairly high up in the waterfall? And, after all that happens, is there any cash flow left over to distribute? So I don't know if I'm curious, having said that, how that plays into your question.
Yeah, I think that definitely answered it. I think going a little bit deeper, I would like to understand the frequency at which specific partners are hitting the targets that we forecasted.
The cash flow or the fees, the transaction fees?
For all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. I think we're getting closer to that. While it is true that during development, sometimes the developer fee can be diminished, like what we thought was happening at close ain't happening because we have cost overruns, et cetera. I would say that is, on the whole, more predictable, at least in terms of the actual money you receive. The timing might be different. I think it would be more common that as we get into operations, we find out that the pro forma that was projected, and that the deal closed upon may not, quite come to fruition for a variety of reasons, so that the actual income to us from operating revenue at the property level is, probably more modest than is underwritten. But we've just started really tracking that, more closely these last couple of years.
when we do revenue projections over the next few months, we'll, I think, really last year was the first time we looked specifically at what had been projected and then where we were in terms of the cash flow.
And then kind of the same thing for capital events at year, what was it, 10 through 15? At what frequency are capital events happening for year 10, 11, 12, 13, 15? I know that's a far ways away for the majority of our portfolio because it's new, but something to think about so we can get better and better at predicting.
When it really is likely to happen.
I think that is all I have. Any further?
Quick follow-up on fees, just since we've been hashing it out and it's top of mind at the moment. Do you happen to know, or would it take a member of the staff to tell us if somebody is, a development partner is not making their fee schedule? What is it? How frequently is that a problem, and what are we doing?
Yeah, so we have hired a accounting firm to help us kind of identify the schedule at which developers should be paying these different fees at various milestones or whenever they're due per the agreements. We are noticing that they don't always follow the schedule, and that's kind of across the board. And then of course we have
Which doesn't mean they're always late. Sometimes they pay us more often.
Yeah.
Which will
Very
fine,
interesting. That's very interesting.
So we're fine tuning that and getting to a place where we can be like, okay, we'll call up the developer. We didn't get that bond issue, bond fee that we were expecting. Where is it? It's usually not, say for one developer, it's usually not any sort of, we don't want to pay strategic. It's just, it's overlooked. And so rather than, I think as we've operated historically, just kind of relying on the developers to be honest and pay us, we are now going to be in a place this year where we can do collection activities.
Again, just a great way to steward, the organization and give the public benefit that we're so committed to. And it's just great to hear that about, becoming better and better to be the best HFC. So thank you. Yeah.
I think 2 quick points in response to that is one, that when we do our annual revenue projection, we are looking at the fee schedule, what we would expect to get that year. And so, the sign for us is, are we not tracking overall to the level of income that we should have? But also, kind of how it plays out is, working with Brown Graham to, build the muscle, both internally and with them to have a very clear schedule of what we expect. But that in our risk rating, we have included that as part of the it's the kind of partnership performance, I don't remember what we called it, where compliance and performance, where, if we have a partner who struggles to keep their books in such a way that they know that, what's expected for them in the partnership, or they don't pay, if it's an earned fee, and there's not a clear reason for it, that is important information for us in terms of who we work with in the future.
So we've gotten actually very detailed in our conversation. Thank you all so much. And the only remaining column we haven't touched on the risk indicators is just in terms of tenant experience. Is there a cadence to the surveys going out to tenants? Can anybody report on how we're evaluating? I know there are assigned numbers here. If you could just sort of speak a little bit about how we're collecting data on that.
We are not yet, we have not yet been able to do tenant surveys for everyone. So it's one of the things that Jim's team is working on. And the first step was sort of understanding across our portfolio what our property managers were already doing and where we might be able to sort of piggyback on processes that they're carrying out. So I know that within Tenant Affairs Committee, that's one of the things that is on their radar, is how we begin to test this in a subset of our portfolio, and then
hopefully go portfolio wide or wide enough that we feel comfortable we're getting good.
So as we digest these numbers today, they're based on what data?
Retention
Thank you.
is the primary,
Yeah.
the best metric we have to,
I
without
appreciate that.
surveying, to understand if people like living there or not.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right. Hearing none, we will move to the next item. IB strategic planning. All right, and I will lead the discussion. So strategic planning is something that will set us up for the future and kind of set the course for the direction that we want to go. Does maybe Julio or Jan or Keisha, can you provide some detail on how this has gone in the past?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
You mean
It hasn't. I mean,
I mean, okay.
like back to when we were
serious.
part
Okay, so
taxi?
serious
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
Serious answer. As you know, Strategic HFC started back in the day in 2004. Maybe a decade ago, it became a development arm for the Housing Authority of Travis County. And the goal there was to both expand the mission of the PHA, the Public Housing Authority, as well as get transactional and cash flow revenue to support the underfunded Public Housing Authority. A variety of circumstances developed that led to us realizing that was a suboptimal arrangement, and Strategic HFC is now independent. During that process, and when I arrived, we were operating under the Housing Authority's strategic plan, and they have a strategic plan, and it's a very conventional strategic plan. And the production and tenant outcomes that we have now associated with independent Strategic HFC were then rolled into the outcomes of HATC. We don't have a strategic plan now, we have a strategic outlook. Another thing to remember is the county itself, neither TCHFC nor the county has a master strategic plan document about housing. The city has something called the Strategic Housing Blueprint. It is not a plan, it is a blueprint, which is a set of goals and strategies, and they adhere to it to some extent. I am not aware that there is of any local entity that is a FC of some kind having a conventional 5-year plan with objectives, goals, etc., and pretty brochure with children on a playground. That does not exist. So that does not mean it is not necessary. It's more that it's a space that does not have ready-made templates. Final comment. I've always said, in some ways, Strategic HFC is the housing version of Central Health. Unfortunately, unlike Central Health, we do not get $200 million worth of property tax revenue every day, but something to aspire to. What we are, though, is an independent public enterprise appointed by the court, and the court has high expectations of us. Central Health does very much have a strategic plan, a rather thick and ambitious one, I would add, with many criteria, many pictures, a lot of rows and columns that can in some ways serve as a model for what a county public enterprise strategic plan might be. That is not an endorsement of that as how we want to do things. I know that when we transitioned to be independent, we had mentioned to our executive director, then interim, different itinerant consultants that we had, that one day we would come back to strategic planning. But it hasn't been something that we've, for the moment, for those of you that are newer to the board, we kind of, to have something that we can come back to and discuss as our strategy is why we had the much leaner strategic outlook as the strategic fill for that, what that document typically does in terms of organizing organizations' thoughts about strategy and outcomes.
That's very.
Just a footnote, there's two versions of the strategic outlook. We have it both, it's posted on the forum, so the public's aware of it, but there's the original one, and then there's one that is simplified, more or less. Maybe that would be good to send out again,
Yeah.
looking at reviewing those things.
Can staff make sure that the strategic outlook is circulated among board members? So, question to my fellow board members, do we think that strategic is now in a position to start a strategic plan for the following? Don't all speak at once. Julia, Diana?
Here are a few thoughts. I think that conversation about whether the very traditional strategic plan format is a fit for us is necessary. We are very subject to the market, as we have talked about today, and so that's important for us. And we are, of course, in a moment where the market has been challenging. That might be an argument for how can we do a strategic plan when the market is challenging. It also means, honestly, we might have more bandwidth for it this year than we do when the market comes roaring back. And so I think it would be time well invested, but I remain somewhat agnostic about what does it look like, and I'd like us to not, be really tied to we must do a traditional 6-month process, et cetera. I also think that it's one of the things that I expect many of you have felt as we, over the last couple of years, try to figure out what our priorities are, make decisions, et cetera. We've been able to use the strategic outlook to some degree, but sometimes when we're trying to figure out what are we doing in committees, what are our priorities, what should staff be focusing on, not having sort of a broader document that maybe is a little more detailed than the strategic outlook has been a bit of a challenge. And so I think it could help orient us and our collective work.
All right, thank you for that. Now, does anyone have any comments?
I do just think that it's so important for us to grasp how different we are as a quasi-governmental entity with no access to bond funds or no stream of funding from our appointers who continue to ask us to do more. So I think we're in a very different position than Central Health, for instance, but also some of the other entities.
And we don't fundraise. I mean, we're,
Correct.
historically. So many nonprofits who are doing this are thinking very much about, the philanthropic community. So kind of thinking
Right.
about what we want to get out of it.
I guess the bottom line being that you have to run a strategy with resources, and our resources have been, well presented as an outgrowth of our portfolio today. And so that's something to never forget.
Could part of the strategic plan be scenario planning, or is that something we should also look into? Maybe it's not the same. Maybe it's
I don't know what you mean.
scenario planning, like what if the construction pipeline completely dries up, our population growth exceeds the 2% and goes, shoots back up to 10% because Austin's become so affordable, and now we are having another affordability crisis. So rents aren't at 50% AMI countywide, but now they're at 100. So like something to where it's like a range, and we can say on the low end, what if we never get out of this 50% AMI or on the high, and what if we have some kind of crazy migration pattern that increases the demand on apartments, and how would we deal with something like that? So like kind of thinking about scenarios like that. Maybe two different things, but I think when we're thinking about the strategic plan, just being aware for all possible scenarios or magnifying any trends that might be out there currently, and kind of running the gamut on what if the trend goes this way or the other way. Does anyone have any feedback on what we would hope or expect to use a strategic plan for, or is there any kind of other tool that we think that we need that we don't currently have to guide strategic? And really thinking a lot about succession and how we envision that, and how we envision new directors coming on and not giving them something to say, this is what we were trying to accomplish, so that efficiency isn't lost in the direction we were trying to go, because they understand where the plan was to go. Does that make sense?
Maybe just a question. I know we're sort of a non-traditional HFC, and we've gone through this, independence phase, and that makes us a little bit more, we're a nonprofit. With strategic planning is very typical. Do most HFCs in our space, are we aware of? Do they have strategic planning processes? I'm not aware. Whether or not they're like us or not, I'm just kind of curious. Are we? Is there a benchmark there that we're not at yet? I don't know if anyone has information on that, but that's sort of cool.
So good. It's a great question. I will give you an impression that I have, but yeah, I think we should, we can look more closely. My impression, first of all, is that most HFCs are embedded within local government.
Right.
And because of that, their sort of planning is more kind of what the government entities overall plan, should there be one, for their housing work. I am not aware of any other sort of standalone HFC that has a strategic plan, but we've not kind of engaged in that. I think it's a good question, because I do think it'll look a little bit different.
Is any
Oh, I'd like to review the strategic outlook and like kind of maybe chew on it a little bit. It sounds like it's something that would be helpful to staff, and one of our roles in the board is to set vision and priorities. So if we, I'm also one not to belabor something with a 100-page document to do that. Just something effective that helps staff kind of prioritize. And just comment on what you were saying around scenario plan. I mean, I think it will be challenging, I think, to maybe set some of those vision and priorities in an uncertain environment. But, I think that's where you get to the core, you focus on the core of the mission and how maybe you do that in an uncertain environment. And then maybe it's not a 5-year plan, maybe it's a 3-year plan, or, something that's a little bit more attainable to the changing economic conditions that may occur. So, but I'm definitely, if it's something that will be helpful to staff, one of our key roles as board members, I'm open to doing that without, with doing a little bit more research as to how things have gone in the past, and maybe market research, and kind of come back and discuss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. I agree with a 3-year timeline versus a 5. I think where we will be in 5. Who knows where we'll be in 3, but at least
I also think
3 will be better.
Our nascent sort of practice of our housing market report and production forecast score that we do annually, which until we have a strategic plan in my mind, then sort of flows into an updated strategic outlook. It's like, I think that annual process of really like, okay, what is the market? What is our environment like this year? Needs to, it is
a critical part of like, we don't do a plan. We have a framework that we're then revisiting annually.
So let me put my cards on the table. I have an opinionated look on this. I used to do strategic plans. Not, I could list them. The biggest one I did was for the Dallas Independent School District. There are basically 3 flavors of strategic plan. The big 100-page goals, objectives. Everybody gets talked to. You spend $300,000 in a year on it. There is the lean version, which you all are alluding to, it's a situational. What are we going to do? And then there are the different flavors of the anti-strategic plan. And one format is an outlook where you don't have a plan. You just say, here's what we think is happening in our operating environment. Here's a few immediate goals. And you supplement that with a variety of tools. And what in this board we've done is we call a work plan. The board has a work plan, which is a set of priorities. And we give those to the leader. We say, these are the things that we think matter this year. The leader says, yup or nope, or here's how I'm aligning them. And then do that exegesis. We know what we're doing for the year. And they're supposed to be related to the outlook. There's another model, which might be, I think, more appropriate given what Ms. Gray has said. And I'm forgetting the author's name. I really like it, but it requires a level of enterprise self-knowledge. His name is, I think, David LaPiana. The book that he wrote around it is called The Revolution of Strategic Planning. It is a very anti-Model 1 plan. There's a bunch of critiques of the traditional one. I think that the main one is a gentleman named Mintzberg. And the main critique is strategic plans take too long, are immediately obsolete, become obsessions, and are ultimately expensive shelfware, is the term in the industry. So I really don't like shelfware. I produce shelfware, and so maybe part of it is that to see kind of how it can really degrade focus for people in an organization as they try and pursue the list that was made 3 years ago. This is compounded, as Ms. Gray said, for us, because we are a financing entity in a crazy, in a market environment. And I also want to convey, we do not have guidance from our appointers. So we might go do our strategy, and then we come back and be like, we wanted you all to be 30 AMI. What are you doing with this, with this missing stuff? And it's like, oh, we blew a year. So I would say I think of a lean approach with a lot of modularity around tools and board process, like using the work plan, using our market tools to check in on it, might be best served. I'll tell you this: I don't think anyone in the time that I've been here has said, "Where's your strategic plan?" And I think, the court may soon be like, hey, we need you to have a traditional strategic plan with 30 pages and pictures and lines and goals, etc. The staff may want to be able to say to the future boards, we're doing what the strategic plan kind of locked us into. Please don't come in and change things that have a high setup cost just because you want to do some good today. Let us stick to the priorities. They might also be interested in that. But I do think this is I guess what I'm saying is there are many ways to really mess this up. And I really think that it's very hard to have it be useful. And so let's make sure we spend the time up front to not have it be an expensive distraction, and it actually solves some kind of problem relative to the status quo that we have, which is getting to know what we're going to be as an enterprise, building tools to have a sense of what our environment is. One example, just to kind of drive this point home, last year, 2 years ago, right? We approved what? 90 workforce deals, something like that. And they're all gone, right? Because of a
Yeah,
bill that we did
most
not
of them.
anticipate
It was-
and market
yes.
conditions, as you were saying. Everybody was like, oh, there's going to be 2 million people in 5 years. We need to build multifamily. Well, things change, both on the market environment and in a policy environment. If we had done a strategic plan under those conditions, it would have been sort of immediately DOA. Whereas sort of keeping it leaner, as in we care about our comparative advantages. We are a non-elected official, HFC. We have a clear affordability metric. We have some tools that we can use, like the HPF, that are idiosyncratic to us. What's our comparative advantage? And Piana's framework is very much about that. It's about the strategic filter helps answer questions ahead of time for staff and board around programmatic decisions, and those questions are sort of permanent. So, for example, for our organization, one that I think would come up from that process is does this proposal help us cost effectively acquire strategic income, right? And so within that, in the annual sort of work plan or whatever staff is doing for the year, we would be asking that strategic filter question of an initiative. So if we were saying, let's expend $300,000 creating a new, financial monitoring system to have really granular information on our people meeting their public benefit, instead of having had that be a line item in a traditional 5-year plan, we would ask it through the strategic filter and say, okay, well, what's the opportunity cost of the 300K of the time? Is it really going to advance the mission? Is it really kind of our comparative advantage? Yes, no. Staff know ahead of time that's the strategic question, and that helps us do something. Again, the only, I have a very opinionated take, but I have enough epistemic, humility to know that it's the result of, my own working experiences. So if folks want to do a 5-year plan, I'm happy to support that if that's where the majority is. I do, I did want to make sure you understand my reservations about, going down that course.
Does the current strategic outlook have a time period, or is it just in perpetuity until replaced with another strategic outlook?
It doesn't have an intrinsic time cap, but the method is intended to be a sort of 24 months kind of situational.
It has a title, 2020, 25, 26.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a 24-month thing.
Done with the floor? That was very helpful. I have a little bit of a cautionary tale just because we are so unique in our structure. We're just getting a full board together. Last year was a lot of onboarding, almost half of the board. And we're just getting seated and we've just built up our staff. And as we realign ourselves, what I'm really wary about, to be honest, is our appointers. I've done some rounds of meetings. I know we're in a lapse right now, but we're going to be revving up to get back in there and do some listening with them. And it's no joke. They do think we should be producing 30%. And it's no joke. They do think we should be running what was the last thing we heard on the autism thing? Something about assisted living for autistic people. I don't know. You're the most recent Director Groves who's been through the rounds, and I did debrief you as president at the time and learned some of the quirkiness and some of the consistency, but there is a lot of quirkiness there, and they are our pointers. So we have a very interesting structure here. We're not Austin Affordable Housing Finance Corporation under the City Council, where everything's out in the open. We know, the City Council members are elected. We know what they stand for. You can get access to them. They're responsive. They've got a voluminous strategic plan. Our pointers are kind of different, and they don't necessarily understand what an HFC is, and the limits we have on what we can accomplish and aspire to. So I think there is a cautionary potential tale here that if we like publish like a very exacting and make a splash with a strategic plan that doesn't fit what they think they've like mentioned to us, quote unquote, it could be interesting. I just want to say we'd have to do some work. I think we'd have to do some real work to make sure that that isn't a surprise. Because we have today, I can name 2, and once reelected, county commissioners who really don't understand what we do, and that they think we have money to do assisted living. Yeah. Script feedback.
Just one quick question for context. When we did the strategic outlook, is that something we also socialized externally with the appointers, or like we go around and share that outlook?
I do not remember us doing that specifically. It is 2 pages. It's very brief.
Yeah.
I think we may have at the time, at our first meeting subsequent to that, sort of said, we've developed something that helps, has defined our broad priorities and helps us make decisions. But I don't think we copied them. I'm looking to board members to see if that's correct.
On the other hand, it was, as is this meeting, a public meeting. I realized my comments were just public. So it wasn't secret. The strategic outlook is no secret. It's on a public forum.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Just yeah.
And the court staff do look at the public forum, as I found out. So they do. They look at the stuff. I think the takeaway is, if we could share the strategic housing blueprint, if you're not familiar with it, to give you a sense of that, that's what government framework for policy looks like. That then we could latch on to as a core entity and say, here's where we fit in, or we think we can fit in, or we'll commit to this. But that doesn't exist. TCHFC doesn't have a strategic plan either. And so it's very hard to feel very confident about developing a very extensive list, in my opinion. I think if we keep it to supporting the generation of supply and preservation of affordable housing, we're on firm ground. And doing that cost effectively while protecting taxpayers, we're on firm ground. When we start to be like, for the next 5 years, we're going to focus on delivering, 4,000 units of 6% housing near transit. We're guessing, but it might not be exactly what they expect. It's a tricky relationship.
I guess I'm just trying to thread the needle. What would staff like more of?
Let me give it, perhaps an example.
Yeah.
I think that one example is maybe public workers, right? So we've initiated some work around public workers over the last couple of years. This was, a board initiated idea, which I think that given current market conditions, we've had limited opportunity to test this, but it is an idea, and the implementation of the manifestation of the way we might work on public workers. It's probably a long-term effort, right? Or at least several years with various experiments embedded. Let's try this and see if it works. Let's try this. What I want to know is that when we are as staff and, investing quite a bit of time in that is actually something that the board is interested in, and that hopefully we also stick to it long enough that we actually figure out what the outcome is, rather than we've changed our minds this year, there's another shiny object. And so that doesn't mean, I'm not interested in having a 5-year plan and we keep doing something that's not working, but that we kind of, y'all have looked across the table at each other and in dialogue with staff said, here are some things that we're gonna we're going to say no to some other stuff for the next few years because we're going to focus on exploring, these items. And I think it lets us be more focused and I think be more successful.
So there's something in between this strategic outlook and the annual work plan that sets goals that is.
Well, first of all, this year there have been in a couple of years some annual work plan. The board does not have one this year yet.
Okay.
We've not sort of instituted a process around that. So it is plausible from my perspective. We might look at the strategic outlook and go, you know what? This tool is awesome. What we really need is the next step, which is, okay, and I'll say in particular, as we go into budget season, as staff later then needs to build out the staff work planning, what does that mean that we are actually going to do in the next year? What is it we're focusing on? So it's possible that we just need a complement of tools. I'm trying not hard not to look at you because you talked about other tools, but I also think there could be something that's in between. Lean, I think, I'm happy to have that be our buzzword.
I think we're all on board with
Yeah.
I think that's clear, but
Yeah.
we just want to get you what you need. Sorry, I'm talking.
No, you still have the floor.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you, our executive director, for that very clear and concise pearl of what would be helpful to you. And I think something further does need to be developed to match that need and to give, not to overuse a word that we're hearing from our consultant a lot, but just so there's alignment. So thank you. Thank you for speaking up. That's all I have.
Director Arce, do you have any thoughts?
Nope, just listening, just taking it all in. It was a lot, but all positive.
Good. Director Prince? All right, let's see. So we've determined that something between a very lengthy and a very short, but still lean.
I think, we're leaning towards short. Let's see how, yeah. We're leaning towards short. What is it's like the minimum viable product sort of idea. What is like the most basic thing that you as a board can work on and can produce that then, moves us forward, that builds on what we've done so far? Because it's easy to add to the process later, right? If we want to expand it, it's difficult to back off of we've now engaged in a, very in-depth 5-year planning process.
And Diana, based on the conversation, what would you see the next step as?
I have an easy next step. The next step is I'm sent in the bulletin. You'll get the strategic outlook. I'm going to have ask Director Altamirano to send me the article that he was talking about. I have a few too that I've looked at in terms of different pieces, and then we'll continue the conversation in ExecCom. I think, I think hopefully there and perhaps in this group come to some better understanding of what that might look like, and then eventually we would look for someone to help us.
Yeah, I was just going to emphasize that you as president can take the lead on this. Yes. And XCOM would be a committee of governance that would take the lead. And definitely hearing from staff is important, but next step might be you.
Great. Does anyone have any further comments, concerns, questions? Yes.
Can I also get a copy of the most recent board plan from the past year? Thanks.
The work plans for the last 2 years are lists of individual director priorities. So they're one pagers.
Okay. Quick read.
Being that there's no further discussion and no further business, to come before the board. The meeting is adjourned at 3:23. Directors.